Act 1. Born with a broken memory. Canberra's skyline was a smudge of white and gold against the navy sky, the kind of view that might make a person pause and wonder why the city wasn't talked about more. The streets below were quiet, empty save for the occasional whisper of a car passing, headlights catching the curve of a distant building. Joey Pearson walked beneath the towering trees, his boots barely making a sound against the cool pavement. He'd walked this path so many times it had become part of him, the dark, lonely stretch that led into the park near Parliament House, a place where he could clear his mind, or at least try to. The moon hung low, casting everything in a cold, silvery light. He paused, his gaze fixed on the horizon, his mind restless. The pack was safe, but that didn't bring him peace. Nothing brought him peace, not anymore. The weight of leadership, of centuries-old bloodlines, of expectations too damn high it all weighed on him, thick and suffocating. His jaw tightened, the familiar pull of the wolf stirring beneath his skin. The need to run, to hunt, was a constant hum in the back of his mind, but tonight his focus stayed sharp, his eyes scanning the park for anything out of place. He wasn't alone, and it wasn't just the moonlit night that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. A figure moved at the edge of the park, a faint silhouette that caught his attention. Tina Potter. Her footsteps were light, almost hesitant, as she wandered along the path. She was the last person he expected to see. A human. A woman who had no idea the kind of world she was stepping into. He hadn't meant to notice her, hadn't meant to let the scent of her something soft, floral, and utterly unremarkable draw him in. But it had. She moved with a quiet confidence, her hands stuffed into the pockets of her coat, her face lifted slightly to the moon, eyes unfocused but clearly lost in thought. Joey's fingers flexed involuntarily. His gaze followed her, something stirring in his chest, but he didn't take a step toward her. Not yet. He wasn't stupid. He wasn't the kind of man who made moves without thinking, especially not with someone like her. But then something shifted. Tina stopped. She turned her head, as if sensing him, as if the air itself had changed. Her eyes met his. For a moment neither of them moved. Her breath hitched slightly, the surprise flickering in her eyes as she looked at him, really looked at him. Joey didn't even pretend to hide the hunger in his stare, or the animal instinct that flared to life at the sight of her. He wasn't sure if it was the moonlight or something deeper, but he knew something had shifted between them. He didn't need to be a mind reader to know she felt it too. She recovered first, shifting her weight as she took a cautious step toward him. "Can I help you?" Her voice was soft, edged with something curiosity, caution. Whatever it was there, mixed in with a warmth that made his wolf stir restlessly beneath his skin. Joey gave a slight tilt of his head, the corner of his mouth pulling up into a half smile. "Not unless you've got some supernatural powers you're not telling me about." Tina raised an eyebrow, a light laugh escaping her lips. "Is that supposed to be a joke?" The sound was unexpected, like a burst of sunlight in a dark room. It tugged at something in him, something he didn't want to examine too closely. Maybe. He took a step toward her, the distance between them narrowing, but only just. He needed to keep control, needed to know how to approach her. She was too unaware, too human. And yet she was drawing him in. "I've never seen you around before," she said, her eyes searching his face with an intensity that made him wonder if she could see right through him. "I don't come this way often." His gaze lingered on her lips for a moment longer than necessary before snapping back to her eyes. "You're new here." She didn't back down. "I live not far from here, just a walk before bed." Something in her voice sent another flicker of heat through him. The mundane details of her life suddenly felt like they mattered. Her casualness, the way she looked so normal. But to him, she was anything but. There was something about her that felt like fate, like something he couldn't avoid no matter how much he tried. "Walk before bed," he repeated, the words rolling off his tongue with a dangerous undertone. "That sounds boring. She shot him a look, a playful challenge flashing in her eyes. Maybe you're just not used to the quiet. Not everyone's chasing something. That hit harder than he expected. He blinked, trying to shake off the sting, but she wasn't wrong. He was always chasing something. His pack, his past, his own damn demons. Joey stepped closer, his body almost humming with the need to touch her, to close the space between them and feel her heat. He could smell her now, her scent so pure, so innocent, and yet it sparked a fire in him that he couldn't ignore. You're right. Not everyone's chasing something, he murmured, his voice lower, rougher. But some of us are. Her breath caught, and for a second he thought she might bolt. But she didn't. Instead, she tilted her chin, meeting his gaze with a mix of hesitation and defiance. "Are you chasing me then?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, daring him to answer. The challenge in her voice was impossible to resist. Joey stepped forward, closing the gap completely, his hand brushing against hers in a fleeting touch that left a spark in its wake. "No," he said, his voice soft, almost a growl. "But I will be." And that was it. That was the moment. Because when her eyes met his again, there was no mistaking it. The connection was real, raw, and terrifyingly deep. Joey stood there for a beat longer than necessary, his breath steady, but the need in him, his wolf, began to rise. He wanted her, needed her, but he couldn't let it happen. Not yet. Not when he couldn't even figure out why he was so drawn to her. He stepped back, watching her face fall just slightly. "Good night, Tina," he said, his voice thick with something unsaid, something that made her look at him a little too closely, as though she, too, felt the weight of the encounter. And then he turned, disappearing into the night before the wolf inside him completely took over. Tina watched him go, her heart pounding in her chest, every instinct telling her that this was only the beginning. The park was quiet. Too quiet. But it didn't bother Joey. The silence settled around him like an old friend, comforting in its stillness, allowing him the solitude he craved. His boots made a soft thud against the pavement, each step deliberate, as he walked beneath the canopy of trees that lined the path. The air was cool, thick with the smell of damp earth and the sharp bite of winter just around the corner. His gaze lifted to the moon, its pale light spilling across the empty street, hitting the tops of the buildings and casting long shadows. The night was his refuge, and he was the king of it. Until she showed up, he hadn't meant to notice her. But then again, he hadn't meant to notice anything anymore. Tina Potter stood near the old fountain, her figure half lit in the moonlight, the wind tugging at her hair as she looked up, lost in thought. Her presence was like a jolt to his system, unsettling in the way it shouldn't have been. She was just another human, yet there was something about her that didn't fit. She wasn't like the others he'd seen before. When her eyes met his, something cracked inside him. "He didn't think anyone else would be out here tonight," Tina said, her voice low but strong, as if she had no idea how much power it carried when paired with that smile. Her eyes flickered with curiosity, a hint of amusement dancing behind them. She wasn't scared. Of course she wasn't. Why would she be? She had no idea who he was. He didn't answer right away. He was too busy taking her in every detail. The way the moonlight bathed her face, how the curve of her jaw softened the sharpness of her features, the soft flush in her cheeks that had nothing to do with the cold and everything to do with the life that ran through her. "Well, you're here," he said finally, his voice deeper than he'd meant it to be, thick with something he couldn't quite name. "Guess we're both breaking the rules tonight." Her lips quirked at that, and Joey's pulse quickened. Damn it, he didn't want this. Didn't want to feel anything other than the cold, the emptiness that came with a life spent alone. But the way she looked at him like she was seeing him, not the predator lurking beneath his skin, it made his heart beat harder. "I suppose so," she said, taking a step closer. "What brings you to the park at this hour? Something tells me you don't just take walks for the fresh air." Her directness surprised him. It was rare to meet someone who could read him so easily. He hadn't even known he'd been standing still, staring at her, but she'd noticed, and now he was aware of every inch of his body, of every inch of her. "I like the quiet," he said, his gaze dropping to her lips, then back up to her eyes. She was close enough now that he could smell her. Subtle, like wildflowers and vanilla. Sweet, but not cloying. He took a slow breath. "And I like the distance from people who think they can figure me out." Her expression shifted, the soft teasing fading to something that felt more real. "You don't think I can figure you out?" Joey's mouth twisted into a small smile. "You've got a lot of nerve for someone I just met." "I've got a lot of things you haven't figured out yet," she said. The teasing returning, but with something else mixed in. A challenge. Something stirred deep in his chest. The tension between them was palpable now, the air thick with a shared energy that neither of them could ignore. He could feel it. Feel her. She took another step closer, and Joey's heart rate kicked up a notch. He didn't want her. He couldn't. But as she neared, he caught the soft, hitching breath she took, the tiny shiver that ran through her when their eyes locked. "Not much to figure out," he murmured, stepping forward until they were almost within touching distance. "I'm not exactly the easy type." She tilted her head slightly, her eyes flickering to his lips again before meeting his gaze. "Maybe I don't want easy." That did it. His hand shot out, cupping her cheek, his thumb grazing her soft skin. Her breath hitched, and the air between them thickened, charged with something raw, something inevitable. He had never been good at holding back, especially when the wolf inside him demanded release. "You don't want easy," said his voice rougher now, "but you're going to get it anyway." Her eyes widened for a split second, but before she could respond, Joey lowered his mouth to hers. The kiss was slow at first, tentative, but it didn't take long for it to become urgent. The world fell away, and there was nothing but the feel of her lips against his, the soft press of her body into his chest, and the way the simple act of kissing her felt like breathing for the first time in years. His hands moved, pulling her closer, trailing over the smooth skin of her neck, the curve of her back. Her fingers slid into his hair, tugging him down, as if she couldn't get close enough either. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she kissed him back, just as fiercely. Her scent, the feel of her pressed against him, it all twisted in his gut, igniting something dark and wild. He broke the kiss, his mouth trailing down her jaw to her neck. The soft pulse of her heartbeat against his lips was intoxicating, and he couldn't stop himself from nipping gently at the skin, his teeth grazing the tender flesh there. "I don't think you know what you're doing," he muttered against her skin, his voice thick with the heat building between them. "I think I do," she whispered back, her fingers digging into his shirt, pulling him closer. Her mouth found his again, desperate now, as if she, too, felt the urgency, the pull that was undeniable. He kissed her back, harder this time, his hand trailing down her back to the curve of her waist. It wasn't enough. Nothing was enough. Joey pushed her back gently, his hand skimming over the fabric of her coat before trailing down to her hips. The world was dimming around them, and the only thing that existed was the taste of her, the warmth of her body, and the wild beat of their hearts in sync. Then, as quickly as it had begun, the moment ended. The first rays of dawn peeked over the horizon, soft light spilling through the trees. Tina broke away from him, her chest rising and falling in quick breaths. Her face was flushed, her lips swollen from the kiss. Joey stood there, unable to move, his own breath ragged. They had crossed a line neither of them could come back from, and neither of them knew what would happen next. Tina's eyes searched his for something, anything, but before she could say a word, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the first rays of morning. Joey remained frozen in place, the sharp sting of loss already settling in his chest. It was over. For tonight. But this wasn't over, not by a long shot. Tina sat at her kitchen table, a mug of coffee gripped tightly in her hands as if it could somehow ground her. The steam curled up in lazy tendrils, but the warmth of it didn't do anything to ease the chill inside her. She'd woken up alone. Again. The sheets had smelled faintly like him. but as always the memories of the night before were slipping through her fingers. She tried to piece it together. His face, his touch, the feeling of his lips against hers, the roughness of his hands. But it all came in flashes too fleeting, too broken. There was something raw about it, something that made her heart race even now, even with the confusion. Her pulse still thrummed in her ears, a reminder of what had happened and how quickly it had ended. Her gaze wandered to the clock. She should be getting ready for work, but she wasn't in the mood to face the real world. Not when the only thing she wanted was to understand the strange pull she felt toward a man she barely knew, and she barely knew him. That thought cut through her confusion, like a splash of cold water. How could she want someone she knew so little about? She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to focus on the taste of the coffee, the only thing that seemed to anchor her to the present. She sipped, but even the warm liquid couldn't erase the emptiness in her chest. The feeling that something was missing, something important, but she couldn't remember what. What was it about him that had her this unsettled? Joey wasn't sure what he was doing. The streets were empty, but he couldn't stop pacing, his boots echoing on the cracked sidewalks as he passed the same landmarks over and over again. His thoughts were like a storm in his head, chaotic, relentless, impossible to quiet. What had that been last night? He'd never felt this drawn to someone, never felt the intense, unrelenting pull like that. But then it was gone. Just like that. He'd pulled away. She'd walked away. And now he was here, torn between the need to find her again and the instinct to let it go. But he couldn't let it go. He should let it go. He wasn't some inexperienced kid. He was a fucking alpha. He should know better. But something in her eyes, something about the way she looked at him had shattered his control. It wasn't just attraction. It was deeper than that. It felt like a fucking connection, one he couldn't explain and didn't want to, because it meant he was falling into something dangerous. Something that would ruin everything. The cold air cut through his leather jacket as he exhaled a sharp breath. His body was on edge, every muscle tight. His wolf stirred restlessly beneath his skin, clawing for release. He wanted to find her. Needed to see her again. Why? He clenched his fists. He was being reckless, but he couldn't help it. That fucking pull was too strong. And the worst part, he didn't even know what the hell it meant. Second rendezvous, Tina didn't know how she ended up on a rooftop. She'd been trying to get a grip on her scattered thoughts. All day work had been a blur, and every time she closed her eyes, there was that nagging feeling that she had missed something important. That there was something unfinished. So when her phone buzzed, the message was simple, just one line. Meet me. Now, no name, no explanation, just a request, and yet, the second she saw it, she didn't hesitate. And now here she was, standing at the edge of the rooftop, the cool night air brushing her skin, looking down at the city's lights twinkling like scattered stars. The sounds of the city felt muted from up here, a soft hum that wrapped around her like a blanket, making the whole world feel far away. And then there he was. Joey. He emerged from the shadows with the same quiet intensity that had marked him the night before. His presence hit her like a physical force, making her heart pick up its pace. He was dressed the same, as if the night before hadn't ended, like he'd been waiting for her all day. Her breath caught in her throat as their eyes locked. Just that same pull, stronger now, undeniable. He stopped a few feet away, his eyes scanning her face, as if he could read every unspoken thought. His expression was unreadable, but his body language was all tension, like a wire pulled too tight. You came, he said, voice rough, like he hadn't used it in a while. Of course I came, she replied, her own voice a little breathless, the words coming out before she could think about them. The truth was, she had no idea why she'd come. She wasn't supposed to, she shouldn't have come. But she couldn't deny the way his presence anchored her, like he was the only real thing in a world that had started to feel increasingly unreal. Joey took a step closer. I've been thinking about you all day. Tina's breath hitched, and she cursed her body for betraying her. "Why did it have to be him?" "Have you?" she whispered, her voice almost a challenge. His eyes darkened. "More than you know." Her pulse kicked up a notch, the heat between them impossible to ignore. It was as if the air around them crackled with tension, thick and electric. "I can't stop thinking about last night," he said, his voice soft, yet somehow dangerous. "The way you kissed me, you've got no idea what that did to me." Her throat went dry. She wanted to reply, wanted to say something smart, but all she could do was swallow hard and look at him. He wasn't giving her an out. And that was terrifying. "I want more," he said, his voice low. "I'm not letting you walk away again." Tina's heart was hammering in her chest. She wanted to walk away. She knew she should. But when he stepped into her space, when he closed the distance between them, the decision was out of her hands. Her breath hitched as his hand brushed against hers, sending a shockwave through her. The touch was tentative at first, then possessive as he cupped her face, his thumb brushing over her bottom lip. His gaze locked onto hers, and she felt the heat of him in her bones, in places she didn't know how to describe. "I need to know something," he murmured, his lips inches from hers. "Do you feel this too? Or am I the only one losing my mind over it?" Her heart raced, and before she could stop herself, she reached up, threading her fingers through his hair and pulling him down into a kiss. It was desperate, hungry. No hesitation, no second guessing. His hands were on her, pulling her closer, and when their bodies collided, it was like a jolt of lightning. His warmth seeped into her, and she couldn't tell where his skin ended and hers began. Tina gasped against his lips as he kissed her harder, deeper. His tongue traced the line of her mouth, claiming her in a way that had her pulse racing. The roughness of him was a contrast to the sweetness of the kiss, the duality making it all the more intense. She could feel the thrum of desire low in her stomach, curling around her insides like a fire. Her body was on fire, and she couldn't stop it. She didn't want to. Joey pulled away just enough to catch his breath, his forehead resting against hers, both of them panting. "I don't know what the hell this is, Tina," he said, his voice rougher now. "But I know I'm not letting you go." And in that moment, neither of them knew where this was headed, but they couldn't stop now. They were already in too deep. The second her lips touched his, Joey lost what little control he had left. He wasn't a patient man. He wasn't the kind to hesitate or overthink, especially when he wanted something this bad. And right now he wanted her. He wanted her beneath him, against him, around him, marking her with his touch, his scent, making sure that even if she forgot him tomorrow, her body would still remember. A growl rumbled low in his throat as he deepened the kiss, his fingers threading into her hair, fisting it just hard enough to tilt her head back and give him full access to that sweet mouth. She moaned into him, and fuck. That sound, needy, breathless, made his cock throb with the promise of what was to come. The rooftop was quiet except for their sharp breaths, the sound of their lips colliding in frantic, hungry kisses. The city stretched beneath them, lights flickering, people moving, oblivious to what was unfolding up here. The night air was cool, but she was warm, so fucking warm against him, and he couldn't get close enough. Joey spun her, pressing her back against the cold brick wall. A gasp left her lips, sharp and needy, but she didn't pull away. "No," she arched, her body molding against his like she already knew exactly what he needed. "Joey," her voice was wrecked, desperate. "I know, baby." His mouth traced the curve of her throat, his tongue flicking against the pulse hammering there. He nipped at her, sucked hard enough to make her whimper. Satisfaction curled in his chest. She liked that, she loved that. She shivered as his hands roamed lower, pushing beneath her shirt, fingers grazing bare skin. She was so damn soft, so perfect. "Gonna ruin you," he murmured, voice thick with promise, his teeth scraping against her earlobe. "You know that, right?" Tina's breath hitched. "Then do it." "Fuck." A savage growl tore from his throat. His wolf pushed forward, instincts demanding he take what was his. His hands slid lower, gripping her thighs, and in one smooth move, he lifted her off the ground. Her legs locked around his waist, heat pressing right up against the thick ridge of his cock, and the sensation nearly undid him. Her fingers dug into his shoulders, nails sinking in just enough to sting. "Joey, maybe. I got you." His hand tangled in her hair again, tilting her head back so she had no choice but to meet his gaze. "Tell me you want this." Her pupils were blown wide, lips parted, cheeks flushed. She was the definition of wrecked, and he hadn't even fucked her yet. "I need this," she whispered. That was all it took. Joey shoved her shirt up, his mouth latching onto her breast through the lace of her bra. He sucked hard, teeth scraping over the stiff peak, and she arched, back bowing against the wall. "Fuck Joey," she gasped, hands yanking at his jacket, desperate to get it off. He let her. Let her push it off his shoulders. Let her fumble with his shirt until it was gone too. Then her hands were on him, skimming over the muscles of his chest, his stomach, fingers tracing the deep grooves like she was memorizing them. "Jesus," she whispered. "Something you like?" he asked, voice dark, teasing. "Yeah," she breathed, pressing a kiss over his heart. "A lot." A growl vibrated in his chest. "Then keep touching, baby, because I'm gonna touch all of you." Her head fell back as he ground against her, slow and filthy, letting her feel every thick inch of him through their clothes. Her moan was pure fucking sin, and he had to fight the urge to take her right there against the rough brick without giving her a second to catch her breath. He slid one hand between them, fingers slipping beneath her waistband. "Fuck, you're wet," he rasped. Her breath shuddered out. "For you, damn right she was." He pressed a finger inside, slow, deliberate. Her body clenched around him, slick and hot, and fuck his cock twitched so hard it hurt. "More," she begged, nails digging into his shoulders. He gave her more. His mouth claimed hers in a deep, punishing kiss as his fingers worked her open, sliding in and out, slow teasing. He wanted her on the edge, wanted her desperate, wanted her screaming his fucking name before he even got inside her. She bucked against him, and God, the way she moved like she was made for this for him. He gripped her thigh, held her open, and pushed another finger in, curling just right. "Oh, fuck," she gasped, clinging to him. "That's right, baby," he growled, biting at her lower lip. "Feel good?" She whimpered, nodded. "Tell me," he demanded. "Feels so good," she panted. He smirked against her mouth. "You haven't felt anything yet." Joey dropped to his knees so fast she barely had time to react. He yanked her jeans down, not giving her a second to protest before his mouth was on her. Tina choked on a gasp, her head smacking back against the wall. He groaned, deep and low, as he tasted her. Sweet. So fucking sweet, and he wanted more. He gripped her thighs, holding her open, not giving her a damn choice as his tongue worked her, slow, deep strokes that had her body trembling. "Oh my God," Joey hummed against her, the vibrations making her jerk. He knew what she needed. He pressed 2 fingers inside her again, curling just right, and sucked hard. Tina shattered. Her cry echoed into the night, hands fisting in his hair as her body convulsed. He held her through it, drinking in every shudder, every moan, every tiny gasp as she came apart for him. When she finally sagged against the wall, boneless and wrecked, he wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, satisfaction burning deep in his chest. He stood, crowding into her space, letting her feel the thick ridge of his cock still trapped behind his zipper. "I'm not done with you, baby." Her dazed eyes met his. "Then don't stop," Joey growled. "Not stopping. Not ever." He spun her, pressing her against the wall, and when she pushed her hips back against him, eager, ready, he snapped. There was no slow, no teasing now. He freed himself, lined up, and drove into her in one hard thrust. Tina's moan was ragged, wrecked. Joey gripped her hips, held her steady, and set a punishing rhythm. He was rough, raw, lost in the primal need to claim her, to make sure she felt him, remembered him. Because by morning she wouldn't, so he'd make damn sure her body never forgot. And as she shattered around him again, his name spilling from her lips like a prayer. Joey knew he was already too fucking deep to let her go. Tina woke up feeling wrong. Not sick, not in pain. Just off, like something was missing, but she had no idea what. The morning light filtered in through her curtains, casting a golden glow across the sheets. She blinked up at the ceiling, her body heavy with the remnants of sleep, her limbs warm, relaxed. But there was something else. A strange hum beneath her skin. A flicker of something she should remember, but couldn't quite grasp. Her body ached in places that had nothing to do with a restless night. Her lips felt swollen, her skin oversensitized. She inhaled deeply, and there was a scent musky, masculine, familiar, but it faded as quickly as she noticed it, leaving her frustrated. Tina frowned, shifting onto her side, the sheets cool where another body should have been. Another body. The thought struck hard and fast, leaving her breathless. She squeezed her eyes shut, pushing through the murky fog in her head. A memory tried to surface, flashes of heat, a rough grip on her hips, a mouth at her throat, teeth grazing skin, a voice growling her name like a promise, like a prayer, her breath hitched. Who? Her pulse quickened as she forced herself to remember. But just as she got close, just as the warmth of someone teased the edges of her consciousness, it was gone. The frustration hit like a slap, sharp and maddening. She should remember. She had to remember. Tina sat up abruptly, fingers gripping the sheets like they held the answers. The void inside her stretched wider, a gaping emptiness where something important had once been. She raked a hand through her hair, exhaling sharply. "This is insane," she muttered. She felt like she was chasing ghosts. But deep down, beneath the rational thoughts and logical conclusions, she knew something had happened last night. Something raw, something real, and she had lost it. Again, Joey stood at the edge of his safe house, staring out over the city like it had wronged him personally. He clenched his jaw, hands braced against the railing as the first light of dawn burned through the skyline. He hated mornings, hated the way they stole what little happiness he got from the night before. Another night. Another stolen moment. Another fucking loss. He exhaled slowly, forcing himself to unclench his fists. His knuckles had gone white. He shouldn't be surprised. This wasn't new. The curse had been a cruel, relentless bitch from the beginning, wiping every moment he had with Tina like they were nothing. But last night had been more. Last night had been everything. He could still feel her, the way her body had moved beneath his, the way she had gasped his name, desperate, ruined. She had clung to him like she knew somewhere deep down, she knew what they had was real. And now? Now, she'd wake up with nothing but an ache she wouldn't understand. No memory of him. No memory of the way she'd begged for him. No memory of the way she had looked at him afterward, soft, sated, his. Joey dragged a hand down his face, breathing hard. It was fucking torture. Every damn morning he lost her, and every damn night he had to win her back. Again and again, like some twisted, never-ending game. His wolf snarled inside him, just as restless, just as frustrated. He needed to see her. Needed to make her remember. But he wouldn't. Not yet. If he went to her now, if he saw that blank expression, that confused look in her eyes, he wasn't sure he'd survive it. Because every morning she forgot. And every morning it killed him. Joey leaned against the wall, tilting his head back, eyes shut tight against the morning light. But all he could see was her. All he could hear was her voice, moaning his name like it was the only one she'd ever say. And all he could feel was the ache of knowing she'd never say it again. Not unless he made her. And he would. Tonight. The cafe was warm, dimly lit, and filled with the muted hum of conversation. It smelled of roasted coffee, cinnamon, and something floral that Joey couldn't place. He sat in a corner booth, fingers drumming against the smooth wooden table, his muscles coiled tight. Then she walked in. Tina, his chest tightened, something raw scraping against his ribs. She looked the same soft waves of auburn hair, same confident stride, same lips that had moaned his name last night. But her eyes didn't hold recognition. She scanned the cafe, searching, and when she spotted him, she hesitated. A flicker of something crossed her face like an echo of a feeling she couldn't quite place. Joey forced himself to stay still, to play this game the way the curse demanded. He had to be careful, had to win her over again. She approached, slipping into the seat across from him. Her scent, wildflowers and vanilla wrapped around him, and he clenched his fists against the urge to reach for her. "Hey," she said, her voice soft, uncertain. "Hey," she studied him, her hazel eyes sharp. "You texted me. I wasn't sure if I should come, but you did." She exhaled a slow breath, her fingers trailing over the rim of her cup. "Yeah, I did." Silence stretched between them, thick with something unspoken. She frowned. "This is weird, isn't it?" Joey smirked. "A little." Tina chewed on her lip, a nervous habit he knew too well, even if she didn't know why he knew. "I woke up this morning feeling," she shook her head. "I don't know. Different. Like something was missing, but I couldn't figure out what." Joey's stomach twisted. He swallowed back the bitterness. Maybe it's just one of those days. She looked at him then, really looked at him. And just for a second, something flickered behind her eyes, something deeper than curiosity. Almost like longing. "I feel like I know you," she admitted, barely above a whisper. "But I don't." His throat tightened. "You do, baby, you just don't remember." Instead, he leaned forward, voice low. "Want to fix that?" A slow, hesitant smile curved her lips. "Yeah," she murmured. "I think I do." The private room was small, intimate. Soft candlelight flickered against the walls, the rich aroma of jasmine curling through the air. The furniture was sleek, understated, just a couch, a low table, and heavy drapes that muffled the outside world. Tina stood in the middle of the room, her fingers twitching at her sides, like she wasn't sure why she was here. But Joey knew. She felt the pull, the way her body recognized him, even when her mind couldn't. He stepped closer, closing the distance. He moved slow, careful, watching her every reaction. She didn't step back. "Tell me to leave," he murmured. She swallowed. Didn't say a word. Joey reached out, traced his fingers down the bare skin of her arm. She shivered. "I don't understand this," she whispered. "Why do I feel like?" She trailed off, shaking her head. He tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Like you know me?" She exhaled sharply, nodded. His thumb skimmed over her lower lip, his voice dropping to a growl. "Maybe you do." Her breath hitched, her pulse hammering against the delicate skin of her throat. Then she made the first move. She grabbed his shirt, fisting the fabric, pulling him down as she lifted onto her toes. Their lips met in a slow, tentative kiss, one that should have been careful but turned hungry fast. Joey groaned, cupping the back of her neck, tilting her head so he could devour her the way he'd been craving all damn day. She melted against him, her body soft, warm, his. His hands roamed over the curve of her back, down to her hips, gripping, teasing, claiming. He backed her against the wall, his body pressing into hers, the heat between them sparking like a live wire. Tina gasped against his mouth, her fingers sliding into his hair, tugging, desperate. "Joey," she breathed, voice wrecked. His cock twitched at the sound of his name on her lips. He trailed kisses down her neck, nipping at her skin, savoring the way she arched into him. "I shouldn't want this," she whispered, but her hands were pulling at his belt, her body trembling with need. "Then tell me to stop," he rasped against her collarbone. She didn't. Instead, she yanked his shirt over his head, her hands roaming over the hard planes of his chest. He growled, gripping her waist and lifting her effortlessly. Her legs wrapped around him, and fuck, she was wet, heat pressing against his aching cock through their clothes. "Fuck, baby," he groaned, rocking into her, the friction driving him insane. She whimpered, her head falling back as he kissed down her throat, over her collarbone, lower. He needed to feel her, needed to bury himself inside her, remind her body who she belonged to. even if her mind refused to hold on to it. "Tina," he rasped, dragging her dress up, fingers teasing the lace of her underwear. "Tell me what you want," she moaned, rocking against him, her voice shaking. "You." That was all he needed. With one sharp tug, her panties were gone. He lined up, thrust into her in one smooth stroke, and fuck. She clenched around him, her head tipping back with a cry, her nails raking down his back as he filled her completely. Joey braced one hand against the wall, the other gripping her ass as he set a deep, slow rhythm. Tina whimpered, every roll of his hips making her body tense, shudder. More, she begged. He snapped his hips harder, pulling almost all the way out before slamming back in. She gasped, her body arching, and Jesus Christ, she was perfect. Joey groaned into her neck, his voice a gravelly whisper. "You feel so fucking good, baby. So tight, so wet for me." She moaned, legs tightening around him, pulling him in deeper. The candles flickered, their breathing loud in the quiet room, the scent of sex mixing with jasmine. Joey kissed her like he could brand her with his mouth, like he could force the memory of this to stay. Her body trembled, tightening around him, and he felt the telltale flutter of her release building. "Come for me," he growled, thrusting deep, grinding against her. And she did. Tina shattered, her head falling forward onto his shoulder, her body pulsing around him, dragging him over the edge with her. Joey came hard, burying himself to the hilt, his growl vibrating against her skin. They stayed like that, tangled, breathless, hearts pounding in sync. Then reality crept in. Tina sighed against his chest, fingers tracing lazy patterns on his skin. And Joey knew that in a few hours, this would all be gone. But not for him. Never for him. So he held her tighter, pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, and made himself a promise. Tomorrow he'd make her fall for him again. Something wasn't right. Tina could feel it deep in her bones, a nagging unease that had followed her all day. It wasn't just the usual forgetfulness, the misplaced keys, the occasional blackout moments where she lost track of time. No, this was something else, like she was missing a part of herself. It gnawed at her as she went through the motions, grabbing coffee, pretending to listen to her co-worker drone on about weekend plans, smiling at all the right moments. But beneath it all, there was this hollow ache. Something happened last night. She knew it. Her body still felt tender in places that had no business being tender. Her lips tingled, and every so often, she'd catch herself touching them, trying to recall who had kissed her, why her pulse quickened when she thought about it. And the worst part, every time she passed a reflection shop windows, bathroom mirrors, even the darkened surface of her phone screen, her own eyes, seemed different. Like she was looking for something, or someone. Someone she should know. Someone her body still ached for. The thought made her throat tighten, frustration bubbling to the surface. This wasn't normal. And she wasn't about to let it keep happening. She needed answers. Joey leaned against the hood of his car, arms crossed, mind racing. He hated this. Hated how every morning felt like a fucking reset button, how every night he had to start from scratch. It was a sick joke. A cruel, twisted cycle that kept tearing her away from him. But not tonight. Tonight he was going to plant something deep in her mind, something that would last. He wasn't stupid, he knew he couldn't break the curse overnight. He'd tried before. But he could anchor himself into her thoughts. He could make sure that tomorrow, when she woke up, she'd feel him there. Even if she didn't remember why. That's why he chose the cafe. It was intimate but not suspicious. Public enough to keep things grounded, private enough to let things unfold the way he needed them to. And Tina was coming. She had felt something today he knew she had. He could see it in the way she had hesitated in her text, the way she had asked him why she felt like they had unfinished business. That was progress. And progress meant he wasn't going to let her walk away tonight without something tying them together. The cafe was warm, tucked away from the busy streets, humming with low jazz music and soft conversation. Dim lighting cast golden shadows over polished wood tables, and the scent of roasted coffee beans and cinnamon lingered in the air. Joey had picked the corner booth strategic, private, somewhere they could talk without interruption. Then Tina walked in. His body reacted before his mind did. Heat shot straight through him, his wolf snapping to attention. She was wearing a simple black dress, nothing flashy, but fuck if it didn't make his mouth dry. The way it hugged her curves, the way the soft fabric skimmed her thighs, he wanted her under him, over him, wrapped around him. But he also wanted her to see him, really see him. And tonight he had to play this carefully. She spotted him, her brows knitting together slightly, like she was still trying to piece together why she had agreed to meet him. But there was no hesitation in her steps. She wanted answers. Good. She slid into the seat across from him, eyes flicking over his face like she was trying to place him. "I've been thinking about you all day," she admitted, wrapping her hands around the ceramic coffee cup the server had just placed in front of her. Joey tilted his head, playing it casual, even as his insides coiled tight. "Yeah?" She exhaled, frustrated. "Not like that, I mean maybe like that, but it's not just that. It's more." He leaned in slightly, voice low. "Tell me." She frowned, fingers tapping against the cup. "I feel like I know you, but not just from last night. Like I've always known you." His chest tightened. That was exactly what he needed to hear. "I feel the same," he admitted. Her eyes snapped to his, sharp. "Then explain it to me." Joey exhaled. He had to tread carefully. Give her too much, and she'd reject it. Give her too little, and she'd walk away, unsatisfied. So he reached out, took her hand in his. The contact sent a shudder through her. She sucked in a breath, her pupils dilating slightly. "Some things don't need to be explained," he murmured, running his thumb over the inside of her wrist, feeling her pulse stutter beneath his touch. "Some things are just felt." Her breathing hitched. "That's not an answer." "No, but it's the truth." A beat of silence. Then she squeezed his hand back. "Then let me feel it." Joey's stomach clenched. He had won. He just had to make sure she never let him go again. The night air was crisp, carrying the scent of rain-soaked pavement and city life. The streets were alive with movement, horns blaring, laughter spilling out of bars, neon signs flickering against the wet pavement. Joey barely noticed any of it. All he could focus on was her. Tina walked beside him, her arms crossed, more out of habit than cold. She had this look like she was caught between curiosity and frustration, like she was waiting for him to slip up, to hand her a piece of the puzzle she couldn't quite figure out. It was dangerous letting her get this close, letting her dig beneath the surface. But fuck, he was tired of keeping her at arm's length. Tina exhaled heavily, her boots tapping against the sidewalk. "You're a hard man to figure out, Joey Pearson." His mouth twitched. "That's so." She shot him a look. "Don't play dumb. You show up, act like you know me, and every time I think I'm getting somewhere," she gestured vaguely. "It's like trying to hold on to smoke." Joey slid his hands into his pockets. He wasn't going to lie to her, but he also wasn't about to drop the whole "you forget me every morning" because of a supernatural curse thing in the middle of a crowded street. So he settled for the truth, at least, part of it. "Maybe you do know me," he said, voice low, rough. "Maybe you just don't remember." Tina stopped walking. Just stopped, right there on the sidewalk, forcing him to turn and face her. Her hazel eyes locked onto his, sharp, assessing. "What's that supposed to mean?" Joey stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her vanilla, wildflowers, and something uniquely her. "It means," he murmured, "that you feel it, don't you? This pull between us." Her lips parted, her breath hitching just slightly. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Tell me I'm wrong, Tina. Tell me you don't feel it too." She swallowed hard, and didn't say a damn word. That was all the confirmation he needed. Joey smirked, taking her hand in his and tugging her forward, forcing her legs to move again. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice a little breathless now. "Just walking," he said, tightening his grip slightly when she tried to pull away. "Unless you'd rather stand in the middle of traffic while you overthink this." She huffed but didn't let go. They walked, weaving through the city, past the glow of storefronts and the hum of life. It was easy, natural, like they'd done this 100 times before, and in a way they had. Tina sighed after a while, her fingers still tangled with his. It's not just you, is it? Joey glanced at her. What do you mean? This thing between us, she said, her brows furrowing. It's not one-sided. I don't get it, but I feel like she shook her head. I feel like I know you, but I don't know you. Joey exhaled slowly. She was getting too close to understanding, too close to questioning what was real and what wasn't. And yet, instead of shutting it down, instead of redirecting the conversation, he found himself saying, maybe your heart remembers what your mind doesn't. Tina blinked up at him, something flickering behind her eyes. For a moment, just a moment, he thought she might remember. But then she looked away, focusing on the blur of taillights and shifting shadows instead. I hate this feeling, she muttered. Joey squeezed her hand. Me too, baby. She didn't pull away. Didn't push him for more. They just kept walking, kept moving forward, the city pulsing around them like a living thing. And even though she didn't remember yet, Joey knew one thing for damn sure: he wasn't letting her go. The warehouse was drenched in shadow, the air thick with the scent of rust and rain. Soft pools of ambient light flickered from old fixtures, casting long silhouettes against the exposed brick walls. It wasn't romantic, wasn't meant to be, but it was theirs. A place tucked away from the world, where the city couldn't touch them, where she wouldn't question why she needed to be here. With him, Joey backed Tina against the cool concrete pillar, his breath warm against her lips, his body caging hers in without touching. Not yet. He could feel her pulse racing, her chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. She wanted this, and he was going to give it to her. Took you long enough, she murmured, her voice carrying that teasing edge, but he could hear the tremble beneath it. Joey chuckled, dark and low. Careful, baby. He lifted a hand, dragging his knuckles up her thigh, under her dress. You sound like you're impatient, Tina shuddered. I am. That did something to him. With a sharp growl, he gripped her jaw, tilting her head back. Then you should have said please. Her breath caught. Then she smirked. Not much for begging. Joey leaned in, his nose brushing against her throat. Then I'll just have to make you. He kissed her then deep, claiming the slow, drugging slide of tongues that had her hands fisting in his shirt, her body pressing into him. She tasted like heat and coffee, like something familiar, something his. And fuck if that didn't make him harder than stone. He ripped his mouth from hers, inhaling sharply as he yanked her dress up over her hips, his palms sliding up her bare thighs. No panties, he muttered, his grip tightening. You came here knowing I'd fuck you. Tina exhaled a shaky breath. I hoped. Joey groaned, his forehead dropping to hers. You've got no fucking idea what you do to me. Then show me. That was it. That was all it took. He spun her, pressing her front against the pillar, his hands roaming down her sides, over her ass, squeezing, kneading. He rocked into her, letting her feel him, his cock hard and heavy behind his zipper. Tina moaned, pushing back against him. Joey, he gripped her hips, held her still. You want it, baby. His voice was a rough rasp, barely restrained. Yes, say it. She exhaled shakily. I want it. Joey growled, reaching down, undoing his jeans in a swift motion. He dragged the thick head of his cock against her slick heat, teasing, torturing. Please, she whispered. He thrust into her in one hard stroke, groaning as her body clenched around him. Fuck, he bit out, his fingers digging into her hips. Tina gasped, her nails scraping against the pillar as she adjusted, as she took every inch of him. Joey pulled back, then slammed into her again, setting a deep, relentless pace. Each thrust echoed through the warehouse, the sounds of their bodies colliding lost in the cavernous space. Tina moaned, her head tipping back against his shoulder. Joey, he kissed along her throat, his teeth scraping, biting just enough to make her whimper. That's it, baby. Take me, She clenched around him, her body tightening, chasing the high he was dragging her toward. Joey gritted his teeth, one hand sliding around to find her clit, rubbing firm, tight circles. "Come for me," he ordered, his voice rough, demanding. Her body jerked, her breath stuttering. "I now, baby." And she did. She shattered around him, moaning his name like a prayer, like she knew him, even if she didn't. Joey followed with a curse, burying himself deep, letting her wring every last drop from him. For a long moment they stayed like that, panting, shaking. Then, slowly, reality started creeping back in. Joey pressed a kiss to the side of her neck, lingering, savoring. He didn't want to pull away, didn't want to let go, but morning would come, and she'd forget. He squeezed his eyes shut, exhaling against her skin. Tomorrow he'd have to start over, but tonight she was his. Joey's withdrawal. Joey paced the length of his apartment, tension wrapping around him like a noose. His wolf prowled beneath his skin, restless, furious. This was getting to him. The constant cycle of winning her, losing her, chasing her, claiming her, and then being forgotten, it was driving him out of his goddamn mind. Last night had been too much, too intense, too fucking real. And then morning came, like it always did, and she'd slipped right through his fingers. He needed to stop, needed to pull back before he lost the last shred of control he had left. Because if he didn't, he was going to break, and when he broke, it wasn't going to be clean. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Maybe this was fate's way of telling him to let go, to stop fighting for something that wasn't meant to last. But the problem was, he didn't believe that shit. Tina was his mate, his fucking everything. And yet she wasn't. Not really. Not when she looked at him every morning like he was nothing more than a stranger. Joey clenched his jaw and grabbed his keys. He needed distance, needed to drown in something other than this relentless, soul-crushing need for a woman who forgot him every damn day. For once, he wasn't going to chase her. Let's see if she noticed. Tina stared at the man sitting across from her and forced a smile. This was nice, normal, stable. Everything that being with Joey wasn't. And yet, as Oliver talked, his voice smooth, practiced, the kind of tone that belonged to a man who knew exactly what to say, she couldn't help but feel like she was on autopilot. Like she was watching herself do this instead of actually doing it. Oliver was charming, smart, confident in that effortless, polished way that made him easy to be around. She liked him. She should be interested in him. But there was a problem. Every time she laughed at one of his jokes, she felt like she was betraying someone. Someone she couldn't even remember. She took a sip of her drink, trying to shake off the strange, lingering ache in her chest. What the hell was wrong with her? "You okay?" Oliver asked, watching her with a small, knowing smile. "You've been quiet." Tina blinked. Had she? Shit, she straightened, forcing another smile. "Yeah, sorry. Long day." Oliver hummed, studying her. "You sure that's all it is?" Something in his tone told her he didn't buy her excuse. She hesitated, fingers tracing the rim of her glass. "Do you ever feel like you're missing something, but you don't know what?" Oliver raised a brow. "That's oddly specific." Tina sighed, shaking her head. "Forget it. I sound crazy." "Not crazy," he said, tilting his head. "Just unsettled." Unsettled. That was a word for it. And yet, it didn't even begin to cover the mess she felt inside. Because the truth was, while she was sitting here, enjoying a perfectly nice night with a perfectly nice man, all she could think about was something else. Someone else. And she didn't even know why. The bar was upscale, sleek marble counters, moody lighting, waiters gliding between tables with practiced grace. Conversations hummed softly around her, glasses clinking, laughter spilling over the low jazz music playing in the background. It was a scene she should be comfortable in. Instead, she felt like an outsider looking in. Oliver leaned forward slightly, the faintest smirk curving his lips. "So what's the verdict?" Tina blinked. "Huh," he chuckled. "On me, am I charming? Interesting. Winning you over." Tina laughed, but it was a little forced. "Would you like me to answer honestly or flatter your ego?" He grinned. "Oh, honesty, definitely honesty." She tapped her fingers against her glass. "You're charming. Interesting." She met his gaze. "And you know it." His eyes twinkled with amusement. "And is that a good thing?" Tina hesitated, then shrugged. "Depends on the person." Oliver studied her, his expression shifting slightly. "You're different tonight," she frowned. "How do you mean?" He leaned back, considering. "Usually you're sharp, playful. Tonight you seem distracted." Tina exhaled. He wasn't wrong. She was distracted. By a man with dark eyes and rough hands. A man whose voice still echoed in the back of her mind, even if she couldn't place it. A man who had left a mark on her soul, even if her memory refused to hold on to him. And that scared the shit out of her. She reached for her drink, ignoring the way her fingers trembled slightly. If she was smart, she'd let this happen. Let Oliver be the safe, predictable choice. But deep down, she already knew the truth. She'd never really choose Oliver, because some part of her, some deep primal part, was still waiting for someone she couldn't remember, and yet she knew he was out there, watching, waiting, hurting, just as much as she was. The warehouse was cold, empty. Joey leaned against the rusted railing of the stairwell, staring at the cracked concrete floor, his jaw tight, his pulse slow but heavy. He shouldn't be here, shouldn't be waiting. But he was. Like a fucking idiot, he was here again where she always found him, where they always came together like a bad habit neither of them could break. Except tonight she wasn't coming. She wouldn't. Not after the way he'd pulled back, after the way he'd deliberately kept his distance. Joey exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over his face. This wasn't working. He wasn't working. He kept trying to convince himself that letting go was the right thing to do, that pulling away was some kind of twisted mercy. But his wolf was raging inside him, pacing, snarling. It wanted her. It didn't give a fuck about logic, about the curses, about the pain that came every morning when she forgot him all over again. It just wanted Tina. And then, as if he had conjured her from nothing, she appeared. He sensed her before he saw her. Felt the shift in the air, that unmistakable pull, like his body was wired to her presence. Then she stepped through the doorway. Joey stilled. She looked different, like she was bracing for something, like she knew. Her gaze locked onto his and he didn't move, didn't breathe, just waited. Tina swallowed, then whispered, "Tell me why I keep coming back to you." His chest tightened. "You don't remember." It wasn't a question. She shook her head. Not the details. Her voice was rough, like she had been battling this all day. "But my body does." Joey gritted his teeth. Fuck. This wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to feel it. But she did. And that was all the excuse he needed. Joey moved first, one step. Then another. Tina didn't back away. She didn't ask questions. She just stood there, staring at him with those wide, haunted eyes, waiting for him to take her. So he did. He grabbed her jaw, tilting her face up, his thumb brushing over her lips, his eyes searching hers for something, anything that would tell him she wanted this as much as he did. Her breath hitched, and then she whispered, "Please." Joey's restraint snapped. He crashed his mouth to hers, swallowing the tiny moan that spilled from her lips, his hands gripping her hips, pulling her against him. She was warm, soft, his, and fuck if that didn't make something in him snap wide open. Her fingers curled into his shirt, yanking him closer, needing more, demanding everything. He kissed her deep, raw, letting her feel him, letting her taste the frustration, the hunger, the aching, brutal need that had been clawing at him since the second she walked away last night. His hands roamed, sliding beneath her jacket, dragging it off her shoulders. He needed her skin, needed the heat of her pressed against him, the proof that she was real. He backed her up, their bodies colliding with the cold steel of the warehouse railing. Tina gasped, her nails scraping down his arms as he lifted her, her legs wrapping around his waist. Joey groaned. Fuck, she was already wet. He could feel it, even through his jeans, the heat of her pressing against the rigid length of his cock. "You want this, baby?" he murmured against her throat, his lips grazing her skin, feeling the way she shivered. "Yes," she breathed, her voice wrecked, her body arching into him. "I don't know why, but yes." His grip tightened. "Because I'm yours, Tina. And you're fucking mine," her breath hitched. And then his mouth was on her again, kissing, biting, tasting. He dragged his hands down, pushing up her shirt, exposing the smooth expanse of her stomach. His lips followed, pressing hot, open-mouthed kisses along the soft skin, his teeth grazing, his tongue soothing. Tina whimpered, her fingers sinking into his hair. "Joey, I got you, baby." He yanked her jeans down in one rough motion, groaning as she helped him kick them off. His own clothes followed, discarded carelessly onto the concrete floor. Then he was pressing her back against the railing again, his bare chest flush against hers, his cock heavy and hard between them. He reached between them, teasing her slick folds with his fingers, reveling in the way her hips bucked, in the way she clenched around nothing, desperate for more. "Tell me what you need," he rasped, his lips dragging along the shell of her ear. "You," she whimpered. "I need you." Joey lined himself up, his forehead resting against hers, his breath ragged. "Then take me." And then he thrust inside her, deep and slow, stretching her, filling her, making her his all over again. Tina gasped, her arms wrapping around his neck, her body trembling against him. Joey groaned, his grip on her hips tightening. Fuck, she was tight. Perfect, her walls clenching around him like she was made for him. He set a rhythm, slow but deep, savoring every second, every inch of her. Tina moaned, her head falling back. "Joey," he kissed her throat, his teeth scraping, his tongue soothing. "Say my name again." She whimpered, her nails dragging down his back. "Joey." Louder. She moaned it this time, her body writhing beneath him, her legs tightening around his waist. His control slipped. Joey slammed into her harder, deeper, groaning at the way she took him, how she gasped every time he bottomed out. The sound of their bodies colliding filled the space, raw and desperate, the only thing grounding him to the moment. She was close. He could feel it, the way she trembled, the way her breathing turned ragged. "You gonna come for me, baby?" He growled against her lips. Tina whimpered, nodding, her nails digging into his shoulders. "Then do it," he ordered, grinding his hips against hers, hitting that perfect spot she shattered. Her body tensed, then fell apart around him, her cries muffled against his shoulder, her walls pulsing, gripping him so fucking tight that he had no choice but to follow. With a rough, guttural groan, Joey buried himself deep, letting go, his release mixing with hers, claiming her in a way she'd never remember but would always feel. They stayed like that, tangled, spent, their breaths mingling in the cold night air. Joey pressed a soft kiss to her shoulder, his fingers stroking her spine, grounding them both. But the weight of reality was already creeping in. Morning would come, she would forget. And he would have to do this all over again. Joey shut his eyes, exhaling against her skin. Tina stirred slightly, her fingers tracing over his jaw, her voice quiet. "I don't understand this," she whispered. Neither did he. But that didn't change the fact that he was never going to let her go. Not now, not ever. Act 2, Joey's anguish. The rain poured in relentless sheets, soaking Joey to the bone, but he barely felt it. He walked through the streets, shoulders hunched, fists shoved deep into his pockets, jaw locked so tight his teeth ached. His boots slapped against the rain-slicked pavement, each step echoing in his skull like a fucking death knell. His mind was a fucking war zone. Every morning she forgot him. Every night he had to fight for her all over again, and he was losing. He had thought he could handle it, had convinced himself that as long as he could touch her, hold her, make love to her, he could survive the curse. That the moments they had together were enough. But they weren't, because he woke up every morning alone. And now she was slipping away from him in ways he couldn't fix. She was trying to move on, trying to fit into a life that didn't include him. and Joey was drowning in it. His wolf paced inside him, restless, snarling, needing release. But there was no hunt, no fight, no outlet strong enough to curb the frustration clawing at his insides. Fate was a cruel, sadistic bitch. Joey raked a hand through his wet hair, his fingers trembling. He didn't break easily. He didn't lose control. But this was killing him. And there was no end in sight. Tina stared at her reflection in the mirror, fingers gripping the bathroom sink. Her face was the same hazel eyes, same auburn waves, same soft curves. So why did she feel like a completely different person? She exhaled shakily, pressing a hand to her chest. This feeling, this constant, nagging sense that she was missing something was eating her alive. And it was worse now. Because for the past few nights the encounters had changed. The passion was still there. The need still owned her. But there was something else creeping in. Desperation. It was in the way Joey kissed her, the way he touched her, the way his hands trembled when they were wrapped around her body, like he never wanted to let go. Like he knew she was slipping through his fingers, and what terrified her most, she felt it too. Tina turned on the faucet, splashing cold water onto her face. Maybe she was losing her mind. Maybe the stress of everything was catching up to her. Or maybe her breath stuttered. Maybe she wasn't crazy. Maybe there was something real beneath all of this. Something she just couldn't quite see. Something that belonged to him. And that thought scared her more than anything. The alley was narrow and dimly lit. Puddles forming in the uneven cracks of the pavement. Rain dripped from the fire escapes above, a steady rhythm against the quiet hum of the city beyond. Tina had been walking without direction, without thought, lost in the storm inside her head, until she collided with a hard chest. A large, familiar chest. She gasped, stumbling back. Strong hands shot out, gripping her arms, steadying her. Her breath caught. Joey. His soaked t-shirt clung to his body, rain dripping from his hair, his face shadowed and wrecked. Her pulse slammed against her ribs. Joey exhaled sharply, staring down at her with an intensity that made her stomach tighten. "What the hell are you doing out here?" His voice was rough, edged with something raw. Tina swallowed. "Ta. I could ask you the same thing." His jaw flexed. "Tina, I don't know why I'm here," she cut in, voice shaking. "I don't know why I keep running into you, why I keep feeling like I know you, she broke off, clenching her fists. Joey's throat bobbed as he took a slow step forward. "Then stop fighting it." Tina shook her head. "I'm not yes you are," he snapped, rain glistening on his skin. "Every damn time I get close, you push me away. And I can't keep doing this, Tina. I can't keep losing you." Her stomach twisted. "Losing me." Joey dragged a hand through his wet hair, his breath coming fast. "You don't get it." His voice cracked, something splintering in it. "You don't remember, but I do. Every fucking day I wake up knowing I'm going to have to fight for you all over again. And I do it. I do it because I love you. Because you're mine." Her breath hitched. "You're mine," he repeated, stepping closer, his hand coming up to cup her cheek, his thumb dragging over her rain-slicked skin. "And I'm yours, but you don't fucking remember, and it's killing me." Tina stared up at him, her entire body trembling. She should walk away, should tell him he was insane. But she couldn't, because something inside her was screaming that he was telling the truth. Her chest ached, her skin burned, her throat tightened. Joey, his mouth was on hers before she could say another word. The kiss was desperate, messy, frantic, not controlled, not calculated, just pure emotion. Joey growled against her lips, his hands gripping her waist, pulling her into him like he needed her to breathe. Tina moaned, her hands fisting in his soaked t-shirt, her body pressing against his, needing to be closer. The city faded. The rain vanished. There was only this. Only him. Her body melted against his, her nails raking down his back, dragging him in to the pole she had been denying for far too long. Joey groaned, biting at her lower lip, his breath hot, uneven. "Don't fucking forget me this time." Tina gasped against his mouth, Something in her chest clenched, and for the briefest, tiniest second she remembered. Joey, his touch, his voice, his love. But then the moment shattered, the memory slipping through her fingers like water. She broke the kiss, stumbling back, her breath ragged. Joey's face fell. He saw it. The way it was already gone. And that was the moment he truly broke. His shoulders tensed, his body vibrating with barely leashed rage, his hands curling into fists. Tina stepped forward, reaching for him. Joey, he stepped back. Her stomach dropped. The pain in his eyes gutted her. And then, voice hollow, Joey whispered, "I can't do this anymore." Then he turned and walked away, leaving Tina alone in the alley, the rain washing over her and the unbearable ache in her chest telling her she had just lost something irreplaceable. The rain was relentless, hammering down on the empty alley, washing the filth from the pavement, but doing nothing to cleanse the storm raging inside them. Joey didn't stop walking, didn't turn around, but Tina did. She stood there, chest heaving, drenched, aching, every nerve ending screaming at her to move, to go after him, to stop him, to fix this. And before she could overthink it, she did. She grabbed his arm, yanking him back with more force than she knew she had. "Don't you dare walk away from me." Joey spun, his eyes burning molten gold under the dim flicker of the street lamp. Rain dripped from his hair, clinging to his sharp jaw, his soaked t-shirt plastered to his body, outlining every muscle, every inch of raw, restrained power. His hands curled into fists at his sides. His chest rose and fell like he was barely holding himself together. "You don't get it, Tina." His voice was hoarse, wrecked. "I can't do this anymore. I can't keep chasing a ghost." Her stomach clenched. Because even though she didn't understand everything, didn't remember everything, she felt it. The loss. The desperation. The gut-wrenching pain that wasn't just his, but hers too. She didn't think. Didn't question. She just moved. She fisted his shirt in her hands and dragged him down, her mouth crashing into his, her body molding to his like she had no other choice. Joey growled against her lips, the sound vibrating through her, deep and primal and wild. Then he snapped, his hands shoved into her hair, gripping, tilting her head back as he devoured her, his tongue pushing into her mouth, claiming, demanding, taking. It wasn't soft. It wasn't careful. It was desperate. His body pressed against hers, backing her into the cold, wet brick wall, his hands dragging down her curves, gripping her hips, owning every inch of her. "You don't get to do this," he rasped against her mouth, his teeth scraping along her jaw. "You don't get to push me away and then kiss me like this." Tina shuddered, her fingers digging into his arms. "Then stop me." Joey groaned, his forehead dropping to hers, his breath ragged. "Fuck!" But he didn't stop. Instead, he ripped open her rain-soaked jacket, pushing it off her shoulders, his hands roaming beneath her damp shirt, trailing over slick, heated skin. Tina gasped when his rough palms found her breasts, kneading, teasing, his thumbs flicking over her sensitive peaks through the soaked lace. She arched into him, biting her lip, the sound of the rain mixing with the breathless moan escaping her throat. Joey cursed. "You drive me fucking crazy." "Good," she panted, her fingers sliding under his shirt, feeling the hard ridges of muscle, the heat of him searing against her chilled palms. He ripped the shirt over his head, tossing it aside, then lifted her effortlessly, pinning her against the wall. Her legs wrapped around his waist, the hard length of him pressing against her core, and fuck the friction had her body begging. "Joey, tell me you're mine," he growled against her throat, his teeth nipping at her pulse, his hips rolling into hers. She moaned, her head falling back against the brick. He pulled back, locking eyes with her, his wolf staring through, raw and unyielding. "Say it." Tina trembled, her nails sinking into his shoulders. "I'm yours." Joey groaned, his mouth crashing back onto hers, his fingers slipping beneath the waistband of her jeans, pushing them down. She kicked them off, shivering as the night air kissed her bare skin. But Joey was there, hot, solid, real, his hands gripping her thighs, spreading her open. "Tastes so fucking good," he muttered, trailing his tongue down her neck over her collarbone lower. Tina gasped as his mouth found her breast, sucking hard, his teeth grazing just enough to send a sharp jolt of pleasure straight between her thighs. "Joey," she whimpered, arching against him, her body writhing, kneading. He groaned, pressing a hand between her legs, feeling her slick heat. "Fuck, baby. So wet for me." She clenched around nothing, frustration lacing through the haze of lust. "Then do something about it." A low, dark chuckle vibrated against her skin. "Oh, I plan to." He lined himself up, his thick cock sliding against her, teasing, torturing. Then he slammed into her. Tina shattered. Her head hit the wall, her breath leaving her in a sharp gasp as he filled her completely, stretching her, consuming her. "Fuck," Joey groaned, his fingers digging into her thighs as he held her still. "You feel so fucking good, baby." She whimpered, her hands gripping his hair, pulling him down for another desperate kiss. Joey growled into her mouth, then set a punishing rhythm deep, rough thrusts that sent shockwaves of pleasure through her, that stole her breath, her thoughts, everything. The rain pounded around them, drenching their skin, slickening the slide of their bodies, making every movement electric. Tina moaned, biting into his shoulder, her nails raking down his back as he fucked her against the cold brick wall, as he owned her with every sharp thrust. He cupped her jaw, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You feel this?" he growled. "Tell me you feel this." She gasped, nodding frantically. "I do. I feel it." Joey's grip tightened, his forehead pressing against hers. "Then don't forget it." She wouldn't. She couldn't. Not this time. Pleasure coiled low in her stomach, building, tightening, ready to explode. Joey's pace turned brutal, erratic, his breath harsh against her lips. "Come for me, baby. Let me feel you." Tina cried out, her entire body tensing, pleasure slamming into her so hard it stole the air from her lungs. Joey cursed, his rhythm stuttering. Then he followed, burying himself deep, his release spilling into her with a guttural growl. For a long moment they stayed tangled together, their bodies trembling, the rain still falling in thick, heavy drops around them. Tina clung to him, her heart pounding, her breath shaky. Joey pressed a soft kiss to her temple, his arms tightening around her like he knew. Like he knew this was the last time, because morning was coming, and she would forget. Again. Tina closed her eyes, a tear mixing with the rain. She didn't understand why, but she had never wanted the night to last more than she did right now. Tina's reflection. The city felt different tonight. Tina walked without direction, her boots crunching against damp pavement as she wandered through quiet streets, through forgotten corners of Canberra that she shouldn't have known but did. A park bench beneath an ancient tree. A library with dust-covered tomes she'd never read but could somehow picture herself flipping through. A secluded courtyard, overgrown with ivy and bathed in the soft glow of a hidden street lamp. Every place carried a whisper of something unspoken, a pulse of familiarity that made her chest ache. She didn't understand it, couldn't name it, but it wasn't a coincidence. This feeling, this pull had been there for weeks, and no matter how hard she tried to rationalize it, she couldn't. Truth clawing at the edges of her mind. She was searching for him. She didn't know how she knew. Didn't even remember who he was. But her body did. Her soul did. And the more she tried to push it away, the deeper it burrowed into her bones. Tina stopped in front of a shop window, staring at her reflection in the glass. She didn't look different. Same face, same eyes, same life, but she felt different. Like there was an entire part of herself missing, and somehow he was the missing piece. The pack's inner sanctum was suffocating. The scent of leather and burning wood filled the dimly lit space, but none of it could ground Joey. He sat in a chair by the fireplace, a half-empty glass of whiskey dangling between his fingers, his jaw locked tight. He'd told himself he wouldn't think about her. That pulling back had been the right choice. But that was bullshit, because every night he still felt her. The ghost of her hands on his skin. The sound of her moans echoing in his head. The way she had looked at him last night, desperate, lost, like she had almost remembered. That had gutted him, because the curse had been fucking withering her away from him, but for one fleeting moment she had been there, and then gone. Again. Joey took a slow sip of whiskey, letting the burn slide down his throat. He couldn't keep doing this, but he couldn't let her go either, so he sat there brooding, waiting. For what, he didn't know. Maybe for the night to finally take him under, maybe for the pain to dull, or maybe for fate to throw her back in his path. The bass was a heartbeat. The underground club pulsed with flashing neon, bodies swaying, shadows shifting between strobes of electric blue and blood-red light. The air was thick with sweat and perfume, with the tang of alcohol and the pulse of too many unspoken desires. Tina wasn't sure why she was here. She wasn't even the clubbing type. And yet something had called her here, lured her into the noise, the chaos, the faceless crowd. She weaved through dancers, a drink in hand, the ice clinking softly as condensation slid down the glass. And then a feeling. Her pulse spiked. It hit her like a jolt of lightning, like a whisper from something beyond her control. And before she could stop herself, she turned and saw him, Joey. He was standing at the edge of the crowd, leaning against the bar, a drink in hand, looking just as wrecked as she felt. His dark shirt clung to his broad shoulders, his damp hair tousled, his golden eyes scanning the room as if he had sensed her before he had seen her. Her breath hitched. Their eyes met. The entire club faded. The music dulled, the bodies blurred, and suddenly nothing else fucking mattered. Tina inhaled sharply, her chest tightening, her feet moving before her brain even made the decision. Joey straightened, his grip on his glass tightening, his entire body tense, waiting. She got close. Close enough that she could feel his heat, close enough that the scent of him leather, whiskey, something dark and addictive wrapped around her, pulling her under. Her fingers twitched at her side, aching to touch him, to remember. And then a drunk couple stumbled between them. Tina flinched back. The moment shattered. By the time she regained her footing, by the time she found him again in the crowd, he was gone. Vanished into the sea of bodies. Tina's stomach twisted, an inexplicable grief rising in her throat. Why did it feel like she had just lost something she could never get back? Joey barely had time to think. 1 second, he was pushing through the club's chaotic swirl of neon and shadows, desperate to shake the unbearable feeling crawling under his skin. And the next Tina was there, right in front of him, so fucking close. His pulse jackknifed, his breath locking in his throat. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to find him. But fate had its own sick sense of humor, didn't it? Her chest was rising and falling too fast, her wide, hazel eyes locked onto his like she was seeing a ghost. Joey felt like one. Because right now, with the music throbbing in the background, with bodies moving in a blur of heat and sweat and smoke, with the fucking scent of her wrapping around him like a noose, he was dying. He needed to leave. Needed to turn away, walk out, run. Instead, he grabbed her wrist and pulled. Tina gasped, stumbling after him as he dragged her down a narrow, dimly lit hallway, past the grinding bodies, past the flashing neon, past everything. A door. A dark, quiet back room. He shoved inside, slamming the door shut, and then silence. Thick, suffocating. The only sounds were their ragged breaths. Tina didn't move, didn't speak, she just stared, like she was waiting, like she knew. Joey clenched his fists, his entire body taut with restraint. Tell me to leave. Tina inhaled sharply. Didn't say a word. His jaw locked. Tell me to fucking leave, Tina. Nothing. just the sound of her pulse hammering in her throat. His wolf snapped. Joey was on her in seconds, pressing her against the cool metal door, his mouth crushing down on hers. A broken sound escaped her throat, half a gasp, half a moan. Then she was kissing him back. Hard, frantic, like she was trying to drown in him. His hands roamed rough, desperate, dragging up the curves of her body, claiming, relearning, owning. He tore his mouth from hers just long enough to growl, "You still don't remember me, do you?" Tina shook her head, eyes heavy-lidded, lips swollen. "No," Joey's grip tightened. "But you feel me, don't you?" Her breath hitched. Her fingers dug into his shoulders, nails scraping against his skin. Yes, that was enough. It had to be. With a low snarl, Joey yanked her leg up, wrapping it around his waist, grinding against her, letting her feel exactly what she did to him. Tina moaned, arching, kneading. He kissed down her throat, biting, sucking, marking her skin the way he ached to mark her soul. She tasted like heat and sin, like the only thing that had ever belonged to him. His fingers slipped under her dress, skimming over damp lace, groaning when he felt how wet she already was. "Fuck!" he rasped against her jaw. "Soaked for me, just like always." Tina whimpered, rocking against his hand, chasing his touch, chasing him. It wrecked him. Broke something open inside him. Joey shoved her panties aside, sliding a finger through her slick heat, circling, teasing, until she was panting, her body trembling, her nails biting into his skin. "Tell me you want this." His voice was low, dangerous, laced with an edge of command. Tina's head fell back against the door, her mouth parting, her breath ragged. "I need this." Joey cursed, his control shattering. He flipped her, pressing her front against the cold metal, yanking her hips back, lining himself up. Then he thrust inside her, hard, deep home. Tina cried out, her body gripping him tight, taking every inch of him, her fingers braced against the door like she needed something to hold on to. "Jesus," Joey groaned, his forehead pressing against the back of her neck. "You always take me so fucking good." She gasped, pushing back against him, demanding more. He gave it to her. He set a ruthless rhythm, his hands gripping her hips, keeping her in place as he took her over and over, the sound of their bodies colliding mixing with the muffled bass from the club outside. Her moans were frantic, raw, lost in the darkness, and fuck, he lived for that sound. For her. For this. For the brief moment where she was his. Where she still knew him, even if she didn't remember. "Say my name," he growled against her ear, biting the shell of it, thrusting harder. Tina gasped, barely able to form words. Joey, that's right, baby," he rasped. "Fucking mine." She clenched around him, her body tightening, and he felt her unraveling, coming apart in his hands. He reached between them, pressing tight circles against her clit, pushing her over the edge. Tina shattered, moaning his name, her body jerking, owning her pleasure the way she owned him. Joey cursed, his rhythm stuttering, his cock throbbing as he followed her into oblivion, burying himself deep, claiming her again and again. For a long moment there was nothing but their uneven breaths, the silence between them thick with something unspoken. Joey rested his forehead against her shoulder, exhaling roughly. This was going to kill him. Tina's fingers trembled as they trailed over his, her breath still ragged, her body still his. And yet, the distance was already forming. Joey could feel it, creeping in, pushing between them, whispering that this was temporary. That morning was coming. That she would forget again. The thought made his chest ache. Tina turned slowly, her gaze meeting his, her expression laced with something raw. "Why does it feel like we're losing something?" she whispered. Joey's throat bobbed. He could have lied. Could have told her it was nothing. Could have let her go gently. But he was done with gentle. He cupped her jaw, his thumb brushing over her swollen lips, his voice a gravelly rasp. "Because we are, baby." And then, just like every night before, she slipped through his fingers. Again. Tina wasn't running anymore. For weeks, months, she had been caught in a cycle of forgetting, of longing for something unnamed, of feeling him in the spaces between her heartbeats but never knowing why. Not anymore. Now she was fighting. The library smelled of old paper and ink, dust dancing in the golden light filtering through high-arched windows. Stacks of books surrounded her, filled with myths, ancient curses, lost histories. Every line she read, every old parchment she ran her fingers over, fed something inside her, a hunger for truth, for him, for them. She scoured Canberra's hidden places, finding mystics who spoke in riddles and old women who whispered of wolves and broken bonds. And slowly she pieced it together, a love so deep, so primal, that even time and magic couldn't erase it. A curse crafted not to destroy them, but to separate them, to make her forget, to make him suffer. Someone had done this to them, but she would undo it. Because she wasn't some fragile girl lost in the dark anymore. She was his, and she was taking back what was theirs. From the shadows, Joey watched. Tina moved differently now, not lost, not hesitant, determined. And fuck, if that didn't make his chest tighten with something vicious and protective and proud. She wasn't just feeling the pull anymore, she was fighting for it, for them. And Joey couldn't stay in the background any longer. The elders had warned him against hope, against trying to undo a magic older than them all. But Joey had never given a shit about rules, so he hunted down the whispers. Found the old wolf seers who spoke in cryptic warnings, who told him that love like theirs wasn't meant to be forgotten. That if she was searching, if she was remembering, then something was shifting. The curse was weakening, and if they wanted to break it, they had to face it together. Which was why he sent her the message. A time. A place. A sanctuary hidden deep in the ruins of a forgotten part of the city. A place where the past and present blurred. Where they would either break apart forever or rise from the fucking ashes. The ruin was ancient, swallowed by time and ivy, hidden beneath layers of history no one had dared to erase. Moonlight filtered through broken arches, casting silver onto the crumbling stone floor. Candles flickered in uneven pools of light, their glow breathing warmth into the sacred space. Tina stood in the center of it all, her pulse a steady thrum in her ears. She didn't hesitate when Joey stepped out of the shadows. Didn't question when his golden gaze locked onto hers, when he moved closer, his presence crackling in the air like a storm waiting to break. She just knew. He stopped inches from her, his breath uneven, his hands flexing at his sides like he was fighting not to touch her. His voice was rough, low. "You remember now, don't you?" Tina swallowed hard. "Not everything, but enough." Joey exhaled sharply, his fingers twitching. "Then say it." Her heart pounded. "I know you," she whispered. "I feel you." His breath hitched, his jaw tightening. Tina stepped closer, her palm flattening against his chest, feeling the steady, strong heartbeat beneath. "And I'm done running from this." Joey closed his eyes for half a second. When he opened them, something unleashed flared in their depths. "Then let me remind you, baby." And then he took her. Joey lifted her without effort, pinning her against the rough stone wall, his mouth crashing onto hers in a kiss so deep, so desperate it stole the breath from her lungs. Tina moaned, wrapping her legs around his waist, her fingers tangling in his hair as he devoured her, his tongue sliding against hers, hot and demanding. His hands roamed her body, gripping, exploring, claiming. Every touch was fire, every stroke an unspoken promise. She arched into him, gasping as he tore at her clothes, yanking fabric aside, his hands everywhere, rough palms on soft skin, fingers tracing the curves he already knew by heart. "You're mine," he growled against her throat, his teeth grazing over her pulse. "Always have been. Always will be." Tina whimpered, pressing closer, her hips rocking against the rigid length of him. "Then take me." Joey cursed, spinning them, laying her down on the cool stone altar, candles flickering around them, the ancient energy of the place humming in the air. He peeled the rest of her clothes away, his gaze raking over her, his chest rising and falling in uneven breaths. "You're so fucking beautiful." His voice was hoarse, reverent, his fingers tracing down her stomach, spreading her open. Tina shivered as he leaned down, pressing his mouth to her inner thigh, his breath hot. And then he tasted her. She cried out, her back arching, her fingers fisting in his hair. Joey groaned, his grip tightening on her thighs as his tongue licked, sucked, tormented, dragging her to the edge over and over again. Until she shattered. Her orgasm ripped through her, her body tightening, her moan echoing in the sacred space, in the ruins that bore witness to their love. Joey rose over her, his chest heaving, his cock heavy and ready, pressing against her entrance. Tina met his gaze, her body still trembling. "Don't hold back," she whispered. A muscle in Joey's jaw ticked. "I never do." Then he slammed into her. Tina gasped, her nails raking down his back, the stretch of him stealing the air from her lungs. Joey groaned, his forehead dropping to hers, his body shaking from restraint. "Fuck, baby. You feel so good." She moaned, wrapping her legs around him, taking him deeper, rocking with him, meeting every powerful thrust. The candles flickered, the ancient ruins humming with energy, the air thick with the scent of sweat and skin in them. And this time it wasn't desperate. It wasn't stolen. It was reclaimed. Joey kissed her deep, slow, letting her feel it, his body moving in sync with hers, his hands worshipping, memorizing. When they came together, bodies locked, foreheads pressed, hearts finally beating in sync again. And for the first time as the candles burned low, as their bodies tangled in the afterglow, Joey felt it. The shift. The curse cracking. And Tina, her fingers ghosting over his jaw, her lips pressing a soft, lingering kiss to his temple. She felt it too. Tina's empowerment. Tina had spent too long living in the shadows of a life she couldn't fully remember. That time was over. She wasn't just a woman stumbling through a fog of forgotten nights and aching, inexplicable longings anymore. She was stepping into the light, owning her place in it. Her new position at the community center was more than a job. It was a calling. She worked with struggling women, giving them resources, helping them find their voices, guiding them through uncertainty, just as she had done for herself. Every time she walked through Canberra's streets now, she saw the city differently. It was no longer just a backdrop for confusion and unanswered questions. It was hers, a place she was shaping, changing. And at the heart of it all, beneath the progress and newfound strength, she felt him. Even when he wasn't there, even when she hadn't seen him in days, Joey's presence was woven into her bones. She didn't fully understand what he was fighting, but she knew this: he was fighting. For her. For them. For whatever they could be once the chains binding them finally broke, and Tina wasn't going to sit on the sidelines anymore. She was done waiting. Joey stood on the rooftop of an old warehouse, the city sprawled out before him, neon lights flickering against the rain-slicked streets. His pack was gathered behind him, strong, loyal, ready. They weren't just wolves, they were warriors. And tonight they were preparing for war. The curse wasn't just his burden to bear anymore. It had infected all of them, every wolf who had ever loved, every mate who had ever been lost. But the tides were shifting. The ancient magic that had kept them in a stranglehold was weakening. Because of her. Because Tina wasn't just waiting anymore. She was fighting in her own way. And Joey. He would do whatever it took to make sure they won. No more running. No more losing her. It was time to end this. The refurbished historical building was a masterpiece of contradictions. Old stone walls, polished wood floors, and intricate chandeliers whispered of another era, while sleek modern fixtures and ambient lighting hinted at the present. It was timeless. Just like them. Tina moved through the grand hall, her heels clicking against the polished floor, the scent of aged books and fresh flowers lingering in the air. She was waiting, but not in fear, not in uncertainty. Tonight she was waiting because she knew he would come. And he did. The moment Joey stepped through the arched doorway, her pulse stuttered, her breath caught. He was different. There was something raw in his stance, something changed in the way he carried himself, as if he had walked through fire and come out forged in something stronger, something unstoppable. Their eyes met, the world quieted, and then he was moving. Crossing the space between them in long, determined strides, his golden eyes locked onto hers with the kind of intensity that stole the air from her lungs. He didn't stop until he was right there, so close she could feel the heat radiating from his body, so close she could see the tension coiled in his frame, in his fingers that flexed like they ached to touch her. Tina lifted her chin, her voice steady. "You found a way." Joey exhaled, slow, measured. "We found a way." Something flickered in her chest, pride, warmth, an unshakable certainty that they had already won, even if the battle wasn't over yet. She reached up, cupping his jaw, feeling the rough scrape of stubble beneath her fingertips. His breath hitched. And then he kissed her. Slow, deep, a promise, a vow. This wasn't the desperate kind of reunion they had known before. This was different. Nah. This was the beginning of everything, and as the city hummed outside, as the past and present folded into each other, as two souls who had been torn apart by time finally stood together as one they knew, the curse was breaking, and the future was theirs to claim. The courtyard was ancient, hidden deep in the heart of the city where the modern world had forgotten it. Stone archways loomed overhead, their worn surfaces etched with symbols older than time. The full moon hung heavy in the ink-black sky, casting an eerie silver glow over the cracked flagstones. The air was alive, thick with power, with expectation. Joey stood beside Tina, his shoulders tense, his instincts razor-sharp. He could feel it, the magic coiling around them, writhing, resisting. The curse didn't want to break. It wanted to hold on. Too fucking bad. Tina inhaled sharply beside him, her pulse hammering against the delicate skin of her throat. He reached for her, threading their fingers together, grounding her. She squeezed back, her grip strong, steady. For the first time since this nightmare began, she wasn't afraid. She was ready. The elder stood before them, his weathered hands lifting the ancient relic, an obsidian dagger carved with runes that pulsed under the moonlight. The wind picked up, howling through the ruins, swirling around them like unseen spirits were waking. Joey's wolf stirred beneath his skin, muscles coiling, prepared for anything. Tina took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I'm not running anymore," she declared, her voice steady. "This ends tonight." The elder nodded. "Then speak the name of the one who holds your soul." Tina turned her head, her hazel eyes locking onto Joey's. A slow, shuddering breath left her lips. Then Joey Pearson. The ground trembled. The torches flickered wildly. Joey's chest tightened as energy snapped through the air like a whip, twisting, lashing out. The curse fought. Then the pain hit. A searing, gut-wrenching agony tore through him. Tina cried out, stumbling, but Joey caught her, held her up, refusing to let her fall. "You're not taking her from me," he snarled into the darkness. "Not again." Tina gritted her teeth, her nails digging into his arms. "I remember," she gasped, breath ragged. "Joey, I remember everything." His heart nearly stopped. Then the wind exploded around them. Shadows writhed, the weight of the curse screaming, resisting, but it was losing. And Joey knew it wasn't just the ritual breaking it. It was them. The bond between them was stronger than the magic that had torn them apart. And the curse? It felt that. And it shattered. The weight in the air lifted. The pressure disappeared. The world went silent. Tina sucked in a breath, her body trembling, her eyes glistening as she looked at him. Really looked at him. And Joey knew. It was over. No more mornings of waking up and finding her gone. No more stolen nights. No more forgetting. She was his. Finally, fully fucking his. A slow, disbelieving smile curled her lips. "We did it." Joey exhaled sharply, his chest still heaving. Then he grabbed her face, cradling it between his hands, his voice raw. "Say my name again." Tina's hands slid up his chest, over his pounding heart. "Joey." His soul clenched. And then he was kissing her, not desperate, not panicked. This kiss was a claim, a promise. She was his. And he was never letting her go. As the first rays of dawn painted the sky, warm and golden, the curse that had bound them for so long was nothing more than dust on the wind. And in its place was freedom, a new beginning, and a love that would never be forgotten again. Tina woke to warmth, not just the kind that came from the early morning sun streaming through the open window, painting golden streaks across the sheets, but a different kind of warmth, the kind that settled deep in her chest, the kind that made her feel whole for the first time in as long as she could remember. Because this time she remembered everything. Her breath hitched as the weight of it settled in the stolen nights, the desperate reunions, the endless cycle of love and loss, the ache that had haunted her for so long. But now, the curse was gone. The hollow, gnawing emptiness that had plagued her every sunrise had vanished. Her body felt lighter, like she'd shed an invisible weight she hadn't even realized she'd been carrying. And next to her, lying half on his stomach, his arm draped protectively over her waist, was him. Joey. Ah! The man she'd been made to forget. The man who had never once let her go. Her heart clenched as she studied him, drinking in the sight of him in the soft morning light. His dark lashes cast faint shadows over his cheekbones, his lips slightly parted, his usually tense body relaxed in a way she'd never seen before. Even in sleep he was hers. She reached out, trailing her fingers over his jaw, across the light stubble roughening his skin. The second she touched him, his golden eyes flickered open, sharp, alert until they landed on her and softened. And that was when she saw it, not fear, not hesitation, just relief. "You're still here," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. Tina's throat tightened. She swallowed hard, then whispered, "I remember." Joey went completely still. His grip on her waist tightened slightly, his gaze searching hers like he needed to see the truth for himself. Then, slowly, as the realization hit him, something shattered behind his eyes. She felt it before she saw it, the slight tremble in his fingers, the way his chest rose and fell in a ragged breath, the raw, aching emotion that tightened his jaw as if he was barely holding himself together. She smiled, sliding closer, her lips brushing against his, soft, unhurried. "It's over." Joey exhaled sharply, then muttered, "Fuck," before crushing her against him, his arms tightening around her like he'd never let go. And he wouldn't. Not now, not ever. The moments stretched between them, thick with something new. Something that had never been allowed to exist before now. Love without desperation. Passion without fear. Joey rolled over, hovering above her, his golden eyes dark with something possessive, something real. His fingers slid through her hair, his thumb tracing the curve of her cheekbone, as if memorizing her all over again. "You're mine," he murmured, voice low, reverent. Tina's lips parted, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Always." Joey's lips crashed onto hers, stealing her breath, owning her in a way he never truly could before. His tongue slid against hers, slow, deep, claiming. His hands roamed her body, no rush, no urgency, just devotion. Like he had all the time in the world, because now they did. Tina arched into his touch, her body aching for him in a way that was no longer desperate but necessary. Joey growled low in his throat, dragging the sheets down her body, exposing every inch of her to the morning light. His mouth followed, trailing kisses down her neck, over her collarbone, lower. He took his time, worshipping her. Tina moaned, her fingers threading through his hair as he tasted every inch of her, his tongue flicking, teasing, devouring until she was trembling beneath him, coming apart in his hands. Joey didn't stop, didn't rush. He dragged it out, taking everything she gave him, giving her everything in return. When he finally slid into her, stretching her, filling her completely, her gasp mixed with his groan. This wasn't just sex. This was a vow. A promise. They moved together, slow and deep, Every thrust, every moan, every whispered name between kisses a declaration. She felt him. Not just his body, but his soul. And when they finally shattered, tangled in each other, breathless and whole, Tina knew this wasn't just a new beginning. This was home. As they lay together, bathed in the golden morning light, their hands lazily tracing over each other's skin, Joey pressed a kiss to her temple. "No more running," he murmured. Tina smiled against his chest. "No more forgetting." Outside the city stirred, the sound of life beginning anew. And in that quiet, stolen moment, wrapped in the scent of sun-warmed sheets, skin, and forever, they knew their story wasn't over. Not even close. Because fate may have tried to steal them from each other, but now they were ready to fight for whatever came next. And neither of. Act 3. After the breaking. Tina woke to sunlight. It poured in through the sheer curtains, painting warm streaks across the sheets, bathing her skin in a golden glow. The apartment was quiet, except for the distant hum of the waking city beyond the window. No pounding headache, no aching void in her chest, no disjointed, half-formed thoughts fighting to surface. Just stillness, just clarity. And for the first time in what felt like forever, she remembered. Tina inhaled slowly, letting the moment settle. Every memory was there, every single one. The way Joey had fought for her. The way she had fought for him. The nights lost in his arms. The mornings stolen by a cruel fate. The cycle of forgetting, the endless heartbreak, the sheer fury of knowing something was missing but never being able to grasp it. But now the curse was gone. She turned onto her side, pressing her palm against the empty space beside her. The sheets were cool. Joey wasn't here. He'd stayed with her through the breaking, through the storm of supernatural energy that had nearly ripped her apart. He'd held her until exhaustion pulled them both under. But now, in the quiet glow of dawn, he was gone. A flicker of something bittersweet passed through her. Not fear, not sadness, just awareness. Because even if he wasn't here now, she knew he wasn't running anymore. And neither was she. She stretched, muscles aching in the best way, then rolled onto her back and exhaled a slow, measured breath. I remember every word she murmured to herself. Every touch. Her lips curved slightly. And now I'm free. The weight on her chest, the one she hadn't even realized had been there for so long, lifted. No more waking up to emptiness. No more losing herself. No more losing him. The scent of fresh coffee teased the air, mingling with the cool breeze drifting in through the open window. The curtains swayed slightly, the fabric whispering against the windowsill. Tina closed her eyes and felt the world. The moment. The certainty of it all. Then her phone buzzed. She blinked, reaching for it, heart kicking up a notch as she glanced at the screen. A message. From him. "Joey, good morning, beautiful." Her smile came slow, unhurried. Because for the first time in forever, morning didn't mean forgetting. Morning meant starting again. And this time it was theirs to keep. The park was nearly empty this early in the morning, the air crisp, touched by the lingering chill of dawn. Sunlight dappled through the trees, casting shifting patterns on the pavement, while the distant hum of the waking city murmured in the background. Joey sat on a weathered wooden bench, shoulders tense, head down as he flipped through the pages of an ancient text. The worn leather-bound book rested on his lap, its pages filled with curling script and symbols older than memory. A small relic, a silver pendant inscribed with markings from a forgotten time, rested beside him. He wasn't really reading. His mind was too full, too restless. Tina had woken up whole. Whole. No blank stares, no confusion, no distant looks like she was slipping through his fingers all over again. She knew him. She remembered everything. And yet, some part of him still braced for the fallout, for what came next. The sound of soft footsteps on gravel had his muscles tensing instinctively before he even lifted his gaze. Then he saw her. Tina. She moved toward him, slow, sure. Sunlight kissed her hair, and there was something different in the way she carried herself, an ease, a quiet confidence. No hesitation, no uncertainty. And when her eyes met his, something in his chest unclenched. She sat beside him without a word, close enough that the faintest brush of her arm against his sent a rush of heat through him. Joey exhaled, tilting his head slightly as he studied her. "I never thought I'd see a day when you'd wake up whole." Tina smiled, slow and soft. "I never thought I'd feel every part of me again." Her voice was light but steady, a thread of wonder woven through it. She turned her palm up, fingers brushing lightly against the relic beside him. "But here we are." The tension in his shoulders eased just a fraction. Joey shut the book with one hand, letting it rest on his thigh, his focus entirely on her. "How do you feel?" His voice was low, careful. Tina didn't answer right away. She inhaled, tilting her face slightly toward the sun, letting the warmth settle into her skin. "Light," she admitted. "Like I was carrying something I didn't even know was weighing me down." She glanced at him then, her hazel eyes clear and unwavering. "And I remember, Joey. All of it." His stomach clenched. He had needed to hear that. Her hand found his. Not tentative, not hesitant. Just certain. Her fingers curled around his, warmth seeping into him. He let out a slow breath, flipping his hand so their palms pressed together. The touch was simple, undemanding, but it felt like everything. For a long moment they sat there, letting the silence stretch between them, comfortable and full of unspoken things. A breeze rustled through the leaves, carrying the scent of earth and rain. Somewhere a bird called out, breaking the quiet. And then Joey turned his hand, threading his fingers between hers, lifting their joined hands slightly. Tina smiled. "I like this." His mouth twitched. "Yeah." She nodded, her thumb stroking the back of his hand. "It's nice, not having to start over." His chest tightened. No more losing her. No more fighting for what was already his. Joey exhaled, then pulled her closer, his forehead resting against hers. Tina let out a small, contented sigh, her free hand sliding up to cup his jaw. When she kissed him, it wasn't frantic or desperate. It was slow, soft, a quiet promise of a future they'd finally get to keep. And this time, neither of them was going anywhere. The air was thick with mist, curling around the narrow streets like ghostly fingers. Lamp posts cast long shadows against the wet cobblestones, their golden light flickering in the damp air. Tina pulled her jacket tighter around herself as she walked, the rhythmic click of her boots the only sound in the otherwise silent alley. Even now, with the curse broken, something lingered. She could feel it. A faint, almost imperceptible pull at the edges of her awareness like static crackling beneath her skin. It wasn't fear, not quite. But it wasn't peace, either. The city had changed. Or maybe she had. For so long, her days had been spent in a fog, a cycle of loss and longing she hadn't understood. But now every memory was intact, every moment clear. The weight of forgetting had lifted, but something else had settled in its place. She exhaled slowly, watching the way her breath curled in the cool night air. How much of her past still had its claws in her? How much of it was truly over? She turned a corner onto an even narrower street, the scent of rain and old stone filling her senses. The distant murmur of traffic buzzed somewhere beyond the buildings, muffled and far away. Then her phone buzzed. Tina pulled it from her pocket, her pulse kicking up a notch as she glanced at the screen. A message. No name, no number, just words. "Some shadows never leave." Her stomach clenched. The night suddenly felt colder. She stopped walking, her fingers tightening around the phone. Coincidence? Doubtful. She turned her head slowly, scanning the darkened storefronts, the empty street. The mist swirled, thickening as if the city itself was holding its breath. Someone was watching. She could feel it. A prickle ran down her spine, but she didn't run, didn't even flinch. Instead, she let out a slow, steady breath and lifted her chin. "Then let them watch," she murmured to herself, slipping her phone back into her pocket. She wasn't the same woman she had been before. And if the past thought it could reach for her again, it was about to learn just how wrong it was. The underground chamber was thick with the scent of old parchment, burning incense, and something more primal, something ancient that clung to the stone walls like a whisper from another time. Joey stood at the edge of the room, arms crossed, expression unreadable, but his wolf was on edge. This wasn't over. He'd felt it. The shift in the air. The lingering weight of something unseen pressing against his instincts like a warning. And now, standing among his pack, listening to the murmurs of the elders, he knew he wasn't imagining it. Something was stirring. At the center of the room, an elder wolf, his face lined with age and wisdom, placed a weathered book on the long wooden table. The leather cover was cracked, the pages yellowed, but the weight of its presence was heavy. The curse may be broken, the elder rumbled, his voice deep, measured, but the forces that forged it still stir in the darkness. Joey's jaw tightened. He didn't flinch. Didn't let the words burrow under his skin. But he felt them. "Explain," he said, his tone calm, but carrying the sharp edge of command. The elder met his gaze, unblinking. Curses of that magnitude aren't cast without consequence. The energy used to bind it, the forces that sustained it for so long, they don't simply disappear. They leave a mark, a scar. Joey exhaled slowly, rolling his shoulders. And the elder tapped a gnarled finger against the open book. "We've seen this before. A curse severed, but not without a cost. Sometimes what was meant to be forgotten doesn't want to stay buried." A murmur passed through the chamber. Some wolves shifted uncomfortably, others remained still, waiting for Joey's response. He took a step closer to the table, resting his hands on the rough wood. "I don't care what wants to stay buried," he said, voice steady. "The curse is broken, Tina's free, and whatever's lurking in the shadows," his golden eyes flickered, "it won't touch her." The elder regarded him for a long moment. Then, with a slow nod, he turned the page. The candlelight flickered over old script and faded illustrations, depictions of wolves and supernatural forces clashing in the dark. "You must be ready," the elder warned. "There are always consequences for disrupting fate." Joey clenched his jaw. He wasn't interested in fate. He was interested in keeping what was his. "We stand together," he said, his voice carrying through the chamber. "I will protect what we've reclaimed." His wolves murmured their agreement. Some nodded. Others growled their approval. He didn't need their reassurance, his mind was already made up. If something was coming for them, for her, then he'd face it head on. And this time, nothing would take her from him again. Not fate, not magic, not anything. Joey tightened his grip on the edge of the table, his mind already working through the next steps. He had no intention of waiting for the threat to come to him. If something was lurking in the dark, then he was going to hunt it down first. The rain came in waves, a slow, steady drizzle turning the cracked pavement slick under their boots. The industrial district was a graveyard of forgotten buildings, rusted scaffolding clawing at the sky, windows shattered like broken teeth. Neon signs flickered in the distance, the only light in a place left behind by time. Tina pulled in a deep breath, the damp air thick with the scent of rain, oil, and something off. Something wrong. Beside her, Joey was still, controlled, but she could feel the tension rolling off him, his wolf simmering beneath his skin, waiting for an excuse to unleash. They weren't alone. A handful of pack members flanked them, their eyes sharp, their bodies coiled with readiness. But it wasn't just their numbers that made Tina stand taller, her spine straightening as she squared her shoulders. It was the bond between them. It was the certainty. This wasn't a fight about survival. This was a fight about claiming their future. And she wasn't about to lose what she had just gotten back. Joey took a step forward, boots scraping against wet concrete. "Show yourself." His voice was low, edged with authority. A command. Silence. Then, from the shadows, something shifted. The air thickened, vibrating with unseen energy. The rain didn't touch a small circle of darkness in the distance, as if the space itself rejected it. Then it moved. A shape coalesced tall, shrouded in mist and something darker than shadow. A figure that wasn't just a man, but something else. Something older. Tina's fingers flexed at her sides. She didn't flinch. Didn't take a step back. Neither did Joey. The figure exhaled, a slow, whispering sound that slithered through the air like smoke. Did you really think breaking the curse would erase your past? Joey's lip curled. We're not trapped by the past anymore. The figure took a step closer. Aren't you? Tina's pulse pounded, but not with fear, with rage, because that was what this thing wanted to plant doubt, to remind them of what had been stolen, to make them question whether they had really won. Tina lifted her chin. We won't let you tear us apart again. The air crackled between them. A pause. A single breath's worth of silence. Then the figure laughed. It was an ugly sound, distorted, filled with something ancient and twisted. The mist around it churned, dark tendrils creeping forward, licking at the ground. Joey moved first. A blink, and he was in front of her, a snarl ripping from his throat as the pack followed his lead, the air charged with the sound of shifting bodies, of boots scraping against concrete as they braced for the fight. But Tina didn't need Joey to protect her. Not this time. She stepped beside him, not behind him. And for the first time, she felt no hesitation. She had spent too long forgetting, too long fighting the war inside her own mind. But now, standing in the pouring rain, facing down the last remnant of the curse that had stolen so much from them, she was done letting it have any more of her life. The figure hesitated. Not much, barely a flicker, but she saw it, it knew, it felt them. Their unity, their strength, the sheer force of what they had built between them. The bond that had never broken, no matter how hard fate had tried to rip it apart. Tina took a step forward, her voice steady. We're stronger together. We won't forget who we are. The darkness wavered. Then it recoiled, like it had been burned. The mist curled in on itself, the figure stumbling back, losing shape, its form flickering like a dying ember. Joey let out a slow breath, the tension in his stance shifting, and Tina felt it. They had won this battle. Maybe not the war, but they had won. For now. The shadows pulled back, folding into the night, and as the figure faded completely, the rain finally began to fall again in the space where it had once stood. Tina let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Joey turned to her, his golden eyes flickering in the neon glow. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. Their hands found each other, fingers threading together. And in that quiet, storm-drenched moment, Tina knew whatever came next, they would face it together. The hidden safe house was a small, nondescript space tucked into the edges of the city, its walls thick, its doors reinforced, its location known only to those who needed it. A place for regrouping, recovering, healing. Joey closed the door behind them, locking it with a quiet click. The world outside was still slick with rain, the city humming with distant sirens, and the quiet buzz of life moving on as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. The confrontation was over. The darkness had retreated. For now. The weight of it sat heavy in his chest, the tension from the night still coiled in his muscles. His knuckles ached from clenching, his skin was damp from rain, his heart beat a slow, steady thud in his ears. But none of that mattered when he turned and saw her. Tina stood near the worn-out couch in the center of the small room, her arms wrapped around herself, her damp hair falling in soft waves over her shoulders. The dim glow from a single lamp cast long shadows over her face, highlighting the exhaustion in her eyes, the quiet triumph that lingered just beneath it. She looked up, meeting his gaze, her expression unreadable for a long moment. Then, softly, we did it, didn't we? Joey exhaled, rubbing a hand down his face before stepping toward her. For now. His voice was low, steady. He reached for her, fingers brushing against hers, grounding them both. But I need you to know I'll always fight for us. Tina didn't hesitate. She curled her fingers around his, squeezing. And I'll fight for you. That did something to him. A slow, unsteady breath left his lungs, tension slipping from his shoulders. He lifted their joined hands, brushing his lips over her knuckles, soft, deliberate, a silent vow. Tina stepped closer, pressing her forehead against his, her fingers tracing absent patterns against his chest. "We're okay," she whispered, as if reassuring them both. Joey tilted his head slightly, inhaling the familiar, steadying scent of her. "Yeah, baby!" "We are." The warmth of the moment settled between them, the low murmur of their voices, the distant crackle of wood smoke from the small fireplace, the quiet knowing in the way they held on to each other. No desperation. No fear. Just them. Tina sighed, her fingers slipping down to twine with his, their palms pressing together. And in that moment, with the storm outside and the unknown waiting beyond the walls, one truth remained unshaken: they weren't alone in this fight. Not anymore. And whatever came next, they would face it together. The city stretched before her, bathed in the soft hues of dawn. From the balcony, the view was breathtaking: Canberra's skyline tinged with gold, the glass windows of nearby buildings reflecting the first light of morning. Tina stood at the railing, fingers resting lightly on the smooth stone, taking it all in. The air was cool, fresh, carrying the faint scent of rain from the night before. Birds chirped in the distance, their calls blending with the early morning hum of traffic below. This building, the carefully restored mix of history and modernity, was more than just bricks and mortar. It was a reflection of her, once broken, once forgotten, now rebuilt stronger than before. She exhaled, the weight of that realization settling in her chest. For years she had wandered through life feeling like a shadow of herself, never quite whole, always searching for something unnamed. But she wasn't searching anymore. She had found herself. The woman standing here now wasn't the same one who had woken up day after day with no memories, no control over her own fate. This woman was whole. A survivor. A fighter. A leader. Her phone vibrated on the marble table beside her, pulling her from her thoughts. She glanced at the screen. A message from one of her colleagues. The community project was a success. Couldn't have done it without you. You're exactly what this city needs. Tina smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. She had always wondered if she had a purpose beyond the supernatural chaos that had dictated her life for so long. Now she knew she did. And for the first time in forever, she wasn't afraid of what came next. She turned her face to the sun, letting the light kiss her skin, and whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." The grand hall pulsed with quiet energy, a hum of conversation blending seamlessly with the soft strains of a classical quartet. Candlelight flickered in crystal sconces, casting golden reflections across polished marble floors. The room was alive, thriving, a testament to the people who had gathered here, to the city that was healing, to the new future unfolding before them. Joey stepped inside, rolling his shoulders against the weight of too many eyes on him. Some held curiosity, others respect. A few, those who knew, inclined their heads in silent acknowledgement. He didn't care about the stares. His attention zeroed in on the one person in the room who mattered. Tina. She stood near the far end of the hall, dressed in deep emerald, the color hugging her curves like a second skin. Confidence radiated from her in a way that was different now, rooted, no longer searching, no longer lost. This was her moment, and fuck, she was stunning. As if sensing his gaze, she turned. The second their eyes met, the noise, the music, the murmured conversations, all of it faded into the background. There was no rush to close the distance. They just watched each other, letting the weight of everything that had come before settle between them. No desperation, no urgency, just understanding. Joey finally moved, weaving through the crowd, every step bringing him closer. Tina met him halfway. He didn't touch her, didn't need to, but he let his gaze linger on her face, memorizing every detail in the soft glow of the chandeliers. The curve of her lips, the quiet strength in her eyes, the way she knew what he was thinking without him having to say a word. He exhaled slowly, We made it through the darkness." Tina's smile was soft but sure. "And now we build the light together." A slow warmth unfurled in his chest. Yeah, they would. The past still existed. The scars still lingered. But they weren't trapped by it anymore. They weren't running. They weren't losing each other. Not again. Not ever. Tina reached for him first, her fingers brushing over his forearm, a light touch that carried everything the battles fought, the nights lost, the mornings reclaimed. Joey took her hand, intertwining their fingers, grounding them both in the moment. No words were needed. The promise was already there. A promise of resilience, of love, of forever. As the music swelled and the sound of clinking glasses filled the air, they stood together, unshaken, unbreakable. And as the camera panned out, metaphorically or not, it left them exactly where they belonged. Side by side, ready for whatever came next. The night had stretched long, but now, in the quiet lull after the celebration, the weight of everything settled, not heavy, not burdensome, just real. Tina stood on the balcony overlooking the city, the cool night air brushing against her skin. Below, the world carried on, cars rolling lazily down streets, soft laughter drifting from nearby cafes, neon lights reflecting off wet pavement. Life moving forward, and for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of what came next. Strong, steady warmth pressed against her back. Joey. He didn't speak right away. Just slid his arms around her waist, pulling her into him, fitting his body against hers in a way that felt effortless. Like he'd always belonged there. She sighed, leaning into him. "You think this peace lasts?" Joey hummed low in his throat, his chin resting atop her head. For a while, a pause. Then, with a smirk in his voice, long enough to get comfortable before shit hits the fan again, Tina huffed out a quiet laugh. "You're an optimist, huh?" He brushed his lips against the curve of her shoulder, his grip tightening. "I'm a realist, baby. But whatever comes, we deal with it. Together." Her heart clenched not with fear, but with something warm, something steady. She turned in his arms, looping her arms around his neck, studying the familiar golden glow in his eyes. I liked the sound of that, his mouth curved, slow and knowing. Good. Because this wasn't the end. This was the beginning. Their past had been stolen. Their future had been uncertain. But now it was theirs to write. And no matter what shadows crept at the edges of their world, no matter what forces threatened to unravel what they'd built, they would endure. Beyond darkness, beyond dawn, together. The end for now.